What up guys, it's Ramalfly for you today and I'm back with another video. Now today's video I want to talk about, does Superman actually know how to fight? Because we have talked quite a bit, especially more recently, about how powerful Superman is and his powers and abilities when it comes to a fight in particular, and arguments about him versus Goku, especially from the channel Noble Comics. I made two videos off of his because he had his original one where he's talking about a couple of things that people keep on forgetting in these debates when it comes to comparing Goku versus Superman, and then he had his response video because a lot of people were arguing against him, and he doubled down on his statement and his sentiments on that. And I watched both those videos. I agreed with him, to be honest. I think he had a solid points, but one point in specific, I had a lot of contest against it by one specific commenter by the name of Rio A, and he was basically saying that Superman does know how to fight. He's been trained by Batman, Black Cat, Wonder Woman, all this other stuff, which he literally mentioned in that video that yes, he's been said to be trained by these characters and that, but when it comes to actually showcasing those skills and abilities in the fight, he doesn't show it because he lacks it. And this guy was keep on going back and forth. There's another person commenting against him, stating that he was stating that basically what he was stating, and what I agree with too, that yes, on paper it looks good, and statement wise he does have some actual fighting ability, but when it comes to showcasing it and what he's done in a fight, whether it's the comics, whether it's the animated movies or live action movies, any form of media where Superman has been he's had a lack of martial arts showings in those fights. He's had his statements, but he has a lack of it. Now I will admit that Rio, whatever how you pronounce it, did have some solid arguments that he made, but after a while he started saying some ridiculous things. This isn't to attack him, it's just that he was making quite a bit of a point and argument for it. He's saying that, because he was telling me that you're saying that he's not a fighter, he fights against multiple different beings. He said he fought against aliens, he fought against gods, he fought against robots, he fought against all this stuff. He's been fighting so long, how could he not be a fighter or a martial artist if he fights so much? He fights all these characters. And he was going back and forth. Now, first, if we want to argue, is he a better fighter than Goku? No, not even close. But I think that most people aren't really arguing that. But if you are, just know that that's not even close. You can't even say that. That's just idiotic. At that point, you would literally have to be brain dead to assume that Superman knows how to fight better than Goku. But the argument about can Superman fight in general, does he know how to fight in general, that is the bigger argument. So he did go back and forth with the other guy quite a bit, and I will go through my points about it. But he did bring some solid arguments. And if I'm being honest, I will admit that I was a little bit wrong on some of mine, and not wrong in the sense of like I just got my analysis wrong. It's just there's just some information that I didn't take into consideration too much because I didn't look at it highly. So one of his biggest arguments he used was Superman uses pressure point strikes to incapacitate Ultraman. So he's showcasing real feats where he did this. Ultraman on a separate occasion, a Kryptonian infused Batman on another occasion against Kryptonian bully. He uses Terraquazam Vo and Terraquazam Rao. Vo to have a psychic kaiju battle, and Rao to purify his body of kryptonite poisoning. He was trained by Mongol and special martial arts to better utilize his powers. During battle, he recalls his training with Wonder Woman to utilize his strength/speed when he was depowered. He used the environment and came to have a very Jackie Chan-like fight. I highly doubt that one. I did see that, but it wasn't like a Jackie Chan fight, that's all I'm saying. Against a group of thugs. Though successfully, this inspired him to look into martial arts training just in case. Here's some examples. So yeah, those were his examples. Those are decent, and the thing that I want to retract myself was, I was stating it like Superman doesn't know how to fight at all and hasn't shown any, martial arts. I do want to say I was wrong about that. I do think he has shown it, but once again, it's very limited. To say he's actually a martial artist or a pure martial artist or knows how to fight like that is still a wrong statement in my opinion, because on average, he doesn't do that. Now, let's go into why I don't think he is, a martial artist. Well, how does he use his body in a fight? Because most fighters know how to use their entire body to utilize it. They know how to elbow, they know how to, punch, kick, knee, even headbutts, like in some sports like lift away. They know how to use their entire body, but Superman rarely uses any other parts of his body besides his fist. So some of you guys can say, well, maybe his style is more like boxing. He does more punches. But even then, if you look at his form and his technique when it comes to his punches, they're not very boxing style or martial arts like. They're very basic and sloppy. They look very barbaric. You see sometimes some boxers or some people, especially nowadays with the whole YouTube boxing scene, where you see these people getting to these boxing rings, throwing wild haymakers, and they're not much of a boxer but more of a brawler. And I think the biggest case you could see is like Deontay Wilder. He does have some skill when it comes to striking, but he really relies on his power and not that much on his skill when it comes to his punches. So his punches are a lot more wild and unpolished. They do get the job done, but they're unpolished. Whereas somebody like Tyson Fury, he's more of a technical fighter, and he does have the power there, but he's definitely more technical. So I would say Superman is somewhat of a fighter, but he's more of a brawler. And a brawler is a low-level fighter because there's, as Khabib Nurmagomedov says quite often, there's levels to this, and there's definitely levels to a fighter. Like for if you're gonna be a fighter, just because you can fight does not mean that you're going to be a top tier fighter. There's different levels. There's low levels, there's like medium level fighters, there's high level fighters. Superman, I would contest more to a low level fighter, whereas Goku is a high level fighter. He has high IQ, he is able to, block, defend. He does many things that a fighter would, whereas Superman relies solely on, brute force. Some people will say Goku does too, but I do think that they're wrong on their analysis, and I can probably get into that a little later. But yeah, I just want to go through the stuff that he said. He used the pressure point techniques on Ultraman and other characters, so that's one of the reasons I would say yes, he does have some ability. But one thing I do want to let you guys know is pressure points don't really work in real life. So the real martial arts that doesn't work, but in fictional martial arts it does. But here's the thing. That has been used on Goku. Mercenary Tao used it on Goku, and Tien has also used the pressure point technique on Goku, and he was able to tank it without it, basically incapacitating him or immobilizing him. So that wouldn't really work on Goku. He stated he also used the Terry Quasar Rao and Vo in a fight to have a kaiju battle in his mind. So that's like image training. But that doesn't really help out that much in an actual fight. It might help against some defense against psychic attacks. It won't give you perfect defense, but it'll give you some at least. But to be able to dispel and purify the poison from your body, that's also it's like the pseudo martial arts, obviously, where you can bring out, but this is fiction, so it's fine. But that just once again not gonna help him out with throwing hands. That's not really useful in that regard. And then he says he used Wonder Woman's technique, so he had to remember to use that technique against some thugs. But once again, that's low level stuff. Those are low level characters, but he was human at that point, depowered. So that's why I say that I do retract the statement because before as I was saying, he's not a fighter at all. He has no fighting experience, martial arts or fighting experience at all. He has very minute, but I do think he has decent more than I gave him credit for. But I don't think he's as good as Superman has given him, because they're making it sound like this guy is actually a martial artist. And like I said, unlike Goku and stuff like that, he doesn't really utilize his other parts of his body. He usually just goes for his punches, and even when it comes to his punches, if you want to argue, it's more boxing style. He doesn't throw punches like a boxer. I don't see him throwing jabs or overhand rights or crosses or hooks or uppercuts. I see him throwing some basic combinations or some basic shots. So even if you want to say he has some boxing skill, when you see it on display, it's very lacking. When you see Goku's, you can see him doing jabs, you can see him doing that. And then you can see other aspects of fighting, because there's striking and grappling, we don't really see him doing grappling. We don't see Goku doing that much either. I think most characters don't need to who have superpowers like these, but we don't see him doing grappling. Goku doesn't do it. But striking, he also is very limited in that. Like I said, he only uses his fist, but then he also doesn't do proper ways of fighting, because fighting isn't just pure offense where you just throw punches and kicks and stuff. It's also about defense. It's about, how well you can block, how well you can dodge, how well you can, trap, and how well you can counterattack, hits. Those really matter. Also parrying. So those are also different aspects of fighting. Superman doesn't show that. I've never seen Superman Superman parry. Superman rarely, if ever, blocks. Superman doesn't dodge attacks too much, especially like punches and kicks coming at him. He doesn't, he doesn't really hit with counter shots. He doesn't do any of those things. But when you see Goku, he always does it. Goku's always, every time he's blocking in a fight, he's blocking punches, kicks, knees. So you see Goku block all the time. You see Goku parry. You see Goku, dodge from long range and close range attacks, like physical attacks. You see Goku counter, throw counter attacks. Superman, you don't see him do that. So he also lacks in that department, which would be contesting into, striking. So he doesn't do that either. So how are you going to tell me he's like a martial artist? Yes, he has some basic stuff, like he does a judo throw, but Goku's shown to do that too. Goku's shown all these stuff, but do it like properly. Superman doesn't. And if you've seen Superman's fights, and this was the biggest reason why I don't believe it, that he's that powerful or that good at his martial arts or hand-to-hand combat, is if you see his fights, he's never fighting like Goku. He's never fighting so fast that the cameras are not be able to track him. Even the humans are able to see his fight. If he's that powerful and has that skill, then he shouldn't be able to be seen. Also, I forgot to mention in that video that I want to mention in this, he fought against a character called the Karate Kid, and the Karate Kid beat his ass. Now, Karate Kid, I think he has some powers, but let's be honest, he is more like superhuman level. He's either like peak human to superhuman, like low superhuman levels of power, where his power really lies is in his martial arts, and he got beaten by the Karate Kid. So of Superman, and this was pre-crisis Superman, so Silver Age Superman. So this is usually contested to be the most powerful version of Superman. So one of the most powerful versions of Superman got his ass beat by a human, a peak human with martial arts. And Goku's a better martial artist and has actual superpowers and is really powerful. So if a human with martial arts can beat Superman, then a superpowered being with exceptional martial arts can beat Superman. So there's already the argument there. And I also read in one the Silver Age comics, there's the Phantom Zone where it broke out, these other Kryptonians, and there was this female Kryptonian that was fighting Superman, and she had this ability where she had this death touch, where she touches him like someplace in the chest or like stomach, like some center area, and if she touches him, she could kill him. So she was about to use the death touch on Clark until Clark got help from his friends, where they basically used the Phantom Zone to switch over everybody else in the city into the Phantom Zone, so they were outside of it, so she couldn't touch him because he was like a ghost at that point. And then they were able to counter change it to sending them back into the Phantom Zone. So Superman would have died by this martial arts attack. They stated it was a martial arts technique that she learned that she could find a death spot of them. So even if you use like something like Silver Age Superman, there's a death spot on him that if Goku was able to hit correctly, he would kill Superman with a simple touch. So yeah, Superman has shown limitations on that front. And like I said, you can find some decent arguments, but let's be honest, with the amount of feats that Superman has, shouldn't he have some decent ass, martial arts feats? But he has a very, very small. I'm pretty sure there's like literally only a handful of martial arts feats you can use for him, where when it comes to just, feats itself, he has an abundance of those. Whereas Goku, he doesn't have that many insane feats. He doesn't have that many feats. He does have some insane ones. He doesn't have that many feats. But when it comes to his martial arts prowess, he has a ton for that. So yeah, comparing them both, it's not even close. I don't know why anybody would argue that. But even martial arts in general, just saying, oh, is he a good fighter? I wouldn't even say he's that good of a fighter. I would say he definitely has some fighting experience, but he's not that great. And this guy's biggest argument that he repeated quite a bit was he fought multiple people. He's been fighting for years. Somebody can fight a ton. That doesn't mean that they're a fighter. A lot of people fight on the street. They had countless people fight on the street all the time. There's some people that fight countless times in the street, but that doesn't make them a fighter. A fighter is somebody who's a professional at it, that knows what they're doing. These street people, when they fight actual professionals, even if the professional has had less fights than them, or even less fighting experience, those guys can beat them. Why? Because even though those guys had more fights, these guys have fought people that are more higher level, more powerful, and had also been specifically trained to use their fighting and know what they're able to do. Whereas these other guys, they just fight randomly. And even in professional sport, there's a common term called padding, where we have where we have people, especially in boxing, that have these high ass records of undefeated streaks. And people say that that doesn't matter because their records are padded. They fought a bunch of like losers and jobbers. They didn't fight no high level competition. So even in real martial arts, people who have tons of fights don't get respected just because they have tons of fights and tons of wins. It's only if they fought certain level of competition or challenged themselves. Whereas Superman, he has fought a lot of beings, but those beings were not competition. They were not a challenge. They were not that powerful. All the characters he has, and when I mean not that powerful, I mean that powerful in martial arts aspect. In general, yes, they're powerful, but Darkseid's not a martial artist. Brainiac's not a martial artist. Doomsday is definitely not a martial artist. And the characters that are martial artists that he fights, like Batman and Wonder Woman, they whoop his ass or have a decent chance against him, even though they're way weaker than him. Batman's able to handle him even with a mech suit, and Wonder Woman, and even though he's holding back, he should be strong enough to take them down without, having to hurt them completely. So, yeah. All I'm trying to say is, Superman, when he does fight people with martial arts backgrounds, he, struggles against them heavily, even characters that are a lot weaker than him. And most of the other characters that he fights don't have it, so it doesn't really mean much. And I know this guy also tried to say, well, Frieza and Boo, somebody stated, well, it's just like stating characters like Cell, Frieza, Boo. And this guy's argument was like, well, where does Frieza get his black belt from? Boo doesn't even know how to fight. And that's not the point the guy was making. The point the guy was making was, you're just stating off characters that he fought. That doesn't mean anything if they don't have any, credentials behind it. Frieza, he says he doesn't have a black belt from anywhere, but we've seen how Frieza fights. He still knows how to goddamn fight. We know he punches, he kicks, he elbows, he headbutts. He even uses his tail. He he does knees, he blocks, he deflects, he attacks. He does other stuff, martial arts fighting styles. Superman's villains don't do that. And yes, you can argue Boo doesn't know how to fight, except for Super Boo and stuff like that. But Fat Boo and Kid Boo, they don't know how to fight. But Kid Boo especially was more powerful than them, and Goku's able to handle them due to his martial arts. So yeah, but mostly the characters he fights have fighting, prowess. It's just that they don't come from some school taught or some shit, But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say on that regard. With that, because I just feel like it's ridiculous. So yeah, does Superman have some martial arts aspect, martial arts skill and technique? I think yes, we should give him a little more credit for that. But is he as good as as a lot of Superman fans think he is? No, I still think he's a low-level martial artist at best. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for next time.